Count humiliated his ex-wife for not having children, but he was shocked when the triplets were born. Before we begin this beautiful period romance story, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I love knowing where you're joining me from. The crystal chandelier trembled with the laughter of 100 voices. Music flowed from the far end of the ballroom, light and practiced, as if nothing in the world could ever go wrong beneath such shining lamps. Isabelle Beaumont stood near the open doors that led to the terrace, fingers curled around her fan, forcing herself to smile whenever someone glanced her way. "Madame la Comtesse, you look pale," murmured a marquise at her side. "You must rest more. You will wear yourself out with all these entertainments." Isabelle turned to her and gave a gentle smile. "I am well, madame. It is only the heat." The woman's gaze slid, just for a heartbeat, to Isabelle's still flat waist. Her smile thinned. "Of course, one must be patient with these things, but one cannot keep Paris waiting forever, can one?" The marquise's fan whispered open as she moved away. Isabelle stood very still. There it was again. That same small phrase, dressed as concern, hiding the real question. Why, after 4 years of marriage, had the Countess Beaumont not given her husband an heir? She drew a breath and looked for Etienne. He stood near the grand staircase, surrounded by men in uniforms and dark coats. His posture relaxed, his smile easy. His laugh rose above the murmur of the room. He wore authority, like he wore his tailored black coat, perfectly, effortlessly, as though both had been made for him alone. When his gaze brushed over the room and met hers, it did not soften. It merely acknowledged. He lifted his glass in the barest of gestures, then turned back to his companions. Isabelle's fingers tightened around the fan. Her heart ached with an old familiar disappointment. There had been a time when his eyes lit when he saw her, when he would cross entire rooms just to take her hand, as if pulled by some invisible thread. That time seemed very far away now. "Isabelle," she flinched. The cool voice behind her belonged to the one person who never used her title unless others were listening. She turned and dipped her head politely. "Comtesse Beaumont." Her mother-in-law's face, still handsome despite age, remained unreadable. "You are standing too much," the older woman said. "You draw attention to yourself. Sit down for a while. Let people look elsewhere." Isabelle managed to smile. "I thought our guests should see their hostess." "They have seen you," the older countess replied. "They see you every season, in the same dress, the same posture, the same absence." The last word hung in the air like smoke. Isabelle swallowed. "I do not understand." "You do." The countess's eyes flicked to her waist with open judgment. "I told my son that you were too delicate, too bookish. A wife must be more than refined conversation and gentle manners." "I have done everything the physicians advised," Isabelle replied quietly. "Everything. It is not something I can command." The older woman's lips thinned. "There are remedies you refuse to consider. Pilgrimages, prayers, special tonics. And there are other possibilities. Perhaps the problem lies not in nature, but in willingness." Isabelle felt heat rise in her cheeks. "You cannot mean—" "I mean that a wife who truly wishes to conceive does not spend her nights weeping into her pillow," the countess said calmly. "My son needs strength at his side, not tears." Before Isabelle could answer, her mother-in-law moved away, greeting another guest with smooth grace, as if she had not just driven a knife between two ribs. Music swelled. A waltz began. Couples turned in the center of the room, skirts swirling, coats flashing. Everywhere life seemed easy, beautiful, and distant from the knot tightening in Isabelle's chest. She felt suddenly weary. The light, the sound, the perfume, the constant watching eyes, all of it pressed in on her. A discreet voice sounded at her elbow. "Madame la Comtesse?" It was Martin, the old butler, his expression carefully neutral. "Yes, Martin?" "The Count requests your presence in his study. At once." Something in his tone made her straighten. "Has something happened?" "I could not say, madam." He lowered his eyes. "He asked that I bring you directly." Her gaze flew to Etienne again. He was no longer by the staircase. The small circle of men he had stood with was breaking apart, each drifting back into the crowd. The space he had occupied felt strangely empty. "I will go to him," she said. She moved through the guests with a practiced smile, nodding here and there, answering greetings she did not hear. Behind each polite face, she imagined whispers forming, questions being polished like glass. Has he set her aside privately? Will he seek an annulment? Is that why she looks so pale? In the corridor leading to Etienne's study, the noise of the party softened, as though she were walking underwater. The doors to the study were closed. Martin opened them for her and stepped back. Etienne stood by the fireplace, though no fire burned. His back was straight, his hands clasped behind him. A tall man in a dark coat sat in one of the leather chairs opposite the desk. Another figure stood by the window, looking out. Isabelle recognized him only when he turned. Dr. Vautrin, the physician who had examined her twice that year. She stopped. "Etienne?" He did not approach her. He inclined his head in formal greeting. "Madame la Comtesse." Her heart sank. He never used that tone with her, not when they were alone. It was the voice he used with strangers. "Did I interrupt?" she asked, forcing a small smile. "No," the word was clipped. "We were waiting for you." She looked between them. "For me?" Dr. Vautrin shifted in his chair, adjusting his spectacles, nervously smoothing his moustache. "The Count asked me to be present," he said. "In case you had questions." "Questions about what?" She looked to her husband again. His eyes were dark, unreadable. "Sit down, Isabelle," he said. She remained standing. "Tell me what has happened." The man by the window, whom she had taken for another physician, turned slightly. She saw, with a quick stab of unease, that he wore the discreet black collar of a church official. "Why is Father Delacroix here?" she asked. Etienne's jaw tightened. "Because this concerns more than your comfort, Isabelle. It concerns our name, our future, our obligations before God and society." Her throat went dry. "I do not understand." He looked at Dr. Vautrin. "Tell her." The physician cleared his throat. "Madame," he began, "you know that I have examined you on several occasions, that I have spoken with you about your difficulties." She nodded slowly. "You said sometimes nature is slow. You said there is still hope." He shifted, not meeting her eyes. "I said there was a chance. But in light of my latest observations, and after certain discussions, it is my professional opinion that for a woman of your constitution, and taking into account the years of your marriage, the probability of conception is extremely low. So low, in fact, that we must consider it negligible." The word fell like a weight. "Negligible?" she repeated. The priest spoke then, his voice smooth. "The doctor means, madame, that it is unlikely the Lord will bless this union with children." She stared at him. "You speak of blessings, Father. You speak as if I have refused them. I have prayed, I have—" "Isabelle," Etienne cut in, a hard edge in his tone. "This is not about prayers alone. It is about facts. It has been 4 years." She turned to him, eyes bright. "And yet you said you were willing to wait. You said you believed—" "I believed you would not fail," he said sharply. "I believed my choice was sound. I ignored those who warned me that your fragility might not suit the demands of our house." She flinched. "Your mother, you mean?" she whispered. He did not deny it. "Dr. Vautrin," he continued, "was your condition ever hidden from me?" The physician swallowed. "I informed you that given the time elapsed, the chances were very small for a normal, fruitful marriage." "A normal marriage," Isabelle repeated, a bitter taste rising in her mouth. "Is that what this is about?" "It is about heirs," Etienne said. "About duty. You knew that when you married me. And you knew I loved you," she answered quietly. "You knew I wanted children. You cannot pretend I was careless about it." "I am not questioning your desire," he replied, his voice lowering. "I am questioning your capacity." She stared at him, unable to breathe. The priest stepped forward. "The Count has asked my guidance," Father Delacroix said. "In such cases, where a marriage cannot be consummated in its full purpose, the Church allows for certain considerations. An annulment, for example. A declaration that the union, though respectable, did not fulfill its intended function and may therefore be set aside so that the individuals may seek other paths more aligned with their duties." Isabelle listened, stunned. "Annulment," she whispered. "You wish to erase our marriage, as if it never existed." He did not answer at once. The silence was louder than any word. "Etienne," she said hoarsely, "look at me." He met her eyes at last. What she saw there made her stomach twist. Not anger, not love, a kind of cold resolve. "I cannot allow the Beaumont line to end with me," he said. And I cannot wait another 10 years to see if nature might change her mind. My mother is right. The house needs an heir. Our estates, our people, our commitments, they depend on it. And I do not matter, she asked. What of our vows? What of the years we have already shared? Are they— Do not make this sentimental, he interrupted, a flicker of impatience crossing his face. We have tried. You have tried. It has not worked. An annulment will free us both from an impossible situation. The physician shifted again, uncomfortable. The priest clasped his hands together, murmuring something about divine will. Isabel's hands were shaking. She clenched them to still them. Have you considered, she asked slowly, that the fault might not be mine? The air in the room seemed to harden. Etienne's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? Dr. Vautrin has examined me, she said. Has he examined you? I am not the one who— That is not an answer, she cut in. Has he? The physician cleared his throat again. I offered to extend my examination on a purely medical basis, he said. The Count declined. He assured me there was no need. She looked back at Etienne. So it was easier, she said in a raw whisper, to assume I was broken, to let everyone think the Countess had failed, rather than risk your own pride. Colour rose in his cheeks. Enough, he said. This is unbecoming. We are not here to assign blame as if this was some petty quarrel. The situation stands. I have spoken with our legal advisor. Father Delacroix has agreed that an annulment would be permissible under certain conditions. The papers are being prepared. She felt the floor under her feet tilt. You have already decided, she said. You have already taken steps. Without telling me. I tell you now, he said. The proceedings will remain discreet. Your dowry will be returned. A suitable arrangement will be made for your future. You will not be left destitute. How generous, she whispered. He went on as if he had not heard. You will leave this house tonight, he said. It is better this way. The guests will not learn of it until after the formalities are completed. You may stay at a small property on the outskirts of the city until matters are settled. After that, you may go where you please. She stared at him. Tonight, she repeated. Yes, and if I refuse? He paused, then gave a slight, weary sigh, as though she were a stubborn child. Isabel, he said softer, do not make this harder. You are a woman alone. I have tried to consider your dignity, but if you fight me publicly, if you insist on creating a scandal— Her laugh cut him off. It surprised her, strange and sharp. A scandal? She repeated. And what would you call this? Summoning a priest and a physician to condemn me? Planning to send me away between dances as if I were a servant dismissed for breaking a plate? His mouth tightened. I had hoped to avoid theatrics, he said. But if you insist on a scene, then a scene you shall have. I am not the one who has failed in his duty. The words struck like a blow. Dr. Vautrin rose, alarmed. My lord, perhaps— Leave us, Etienne said curtly. Both of you. The priest hesitated. Count Beaumont, I am not certain. Now. Reluctantly, they departed. The door closed behind them with a soft click. Silence fell. The muffled music from the ballroom seemed suddenly distant, unreal. Isabel looked at her husband, the man she had once believed would cherish her until the end of her days. The man who now spoke of her as a problem to be solved. Is this truly what you want? She asked. Look at me and say it. He did not look away. Yes, he said. Something inside her seemed to stop. She lifted her chin. Then at least grant me one kindness, she said. Do not send me out like a thief in the middle of your soiree. Allow me to retire quietly. I will leave at dawn. He shook his head. It must be tonight, he said. If anyone asks, they will be told you have gone to the country for your health. The carriage will be ready within the hour. Your maid will pack only the essentials. The rest can be sent later. She absorbed this, struggling to keep her voice steady. And what of you? She asked. Will you return to your celebration? To the music and the wine and the laughter? He hesitated, then shrugged slightly. My guests expect their host, he said. Life does not stop because one arrangement has ended. In time, people will forget. In time, perhaps, she said softly. I will as well. For a moment, the mask on his face slipped. There was a flash of something, regret, maybe, or unease, but it vanished quickly. He moved to the door and opened it. "Martin will escort you to your rooms," he said. "This conversation is over." She walked past him without another word. Their shoulders almost brushed, but neither touched the other. The corridor seemed longer than before, the lights too bright. Servants glanced up as she passed, then quickly looked down. No one spoke. Her footsteps sounded loud against the polished floor. In her rooms, her maid Claire was already folding dresses into trunks with shaking hands. "Madame," Claire cried softly when she entered, "they told me. I did not believe. What is happening?" "I am leaving," Isabel said. Her own voice sounded strange to her ears. "We must be quick." "Leaving?" Tears welled in the girl's eyes. "But where will you go? Has the Count—" "Do not say his name," Isabel whispered. "Please." They packed in silence, interrupted only by Claire's muffled sobs and the occasional clink of jewelry placed in cases. Isabel moved like someone in a dream, folding linen, selecting a few books, a shawl she had always loved. Each object felt like a fragment of a life dissolving under her fingers. When everything was ready, Martin returned. "The carriage waits, madam," he said gently. She nodded and looked around the room one last time, the bed where she had lain awake so many nights, the mirror that had reflected her anxieties, her hopes, her careful smiles. All of it seemed to fade as she turned away. In the vestibule she saw Etienne again. He stood by the door speaking quietly with his mother. The older countess's face was cool, composed. When Isabel approached, the older woman did not look at her directly. She addressed the air near her instead. "I wish you a safe journey," she said. "May you find peace suited to your situation." Isabel held her gaze. "And may you receive the heir you so desire," she replied. "I hope, for his sake, that he never learns what his grandmother did to secure his existence." A flicker of anger crossed the older woman's face. Etienne shifted, as if about to intervene, but Isabel had already turned away. Guests had drifted toward the entrance hall, drawn by curiosity. They watched as the countess of the house stepped down from her own staircase in a simple traveling cloak, accompanied not by her husband, but by an aging butler and a weeping maid. "Is she ill?" "I heard she is going to the country. Perhaps a discreet treatment." The whispers buzzed like insects. Etienne did not move closer. He stood at the foot of the stairs, distant, his expression unreadable. For a second their eyes met. She wanted him to stop her, to say he had been wrong, that the physician was mistaken, that he chose her over duty. He said nothing. She inclined her head, a small, formal gesture, the last she would ever offer him as his wife. He nodded once in return. The door opened. Night air washed over her, cool and sharp. The carriage stood ready, lamps glowing. The driver waited, cap in hand. "Madame," Martin said. She placed her foot on the step, hesitated, then turned back for one last look at the house. Once she had entered this doorway as a bride, full of trembling hope. Now she left it as a problem solved. She climbed into the carriage. Claire helped arrange her skirts, then withdrew at Martin's signal. Servants were not to accompany her. Claire's sob caught in her throat. "Please," the girl whispered. "Madame, let me—" "No," Isabel said softly. "You must stay. Someone must remember that I was here." The door closed. Outside, voices murmured. The driver climbed up. The reins snapped. The carriage lurched forward. Isabel pressed her head back against the seat and shut her eyes. The rhythm of the wheels on the cobblestones beat like a second, relentless heart. She tried to pray but found no words. She tried to think of the future but saw only darkness. Her body felt heavy, oddly swollen with exhaustion and something else she could not name. A slow rolling nausea rose from deep within. She opened her eyes, but the world beyond the window had blurred into shapeless shadows. Paris was falling away behind her, street by street, light by light. A wave of dizziness swept through her. Her breath shortened. A tight, unfamiliar pull twisted low in her abdomen, not painful exactly, but insistent, strange. Her hand moved there instinctively, pressing against the fabric of her gown, as if to steady herself. The dizziness grew. The carriage seemed to rock harder. Her vision narrowed to a tunnel, dark at the edges, sound fading until only the pounding of wheels and her own heartbeat remained. With her fingers still spread protectively over her belly, Isabel's head tipped to the side as consciousness slipped away. The first thing she heard was a spoon striking the side of a pot, then a woman's voice, brisk and worried. She stirs. "Come, give me that towel." "No, the clean one, Adrian, not the one you used on the horse." Isabel opened her eyes to a low ceiling crossed by dark beams. For a moment she did not remember where she was. She smelled broth, wood smoke, and something faintly sour. A round, red-cheeked face leaned over her. "There now," the woman said. "Do not try to leap up. You gave us a fright." Isabel blinked. Where am I?" "The Relais du Pont," the woman replied. "A little inn on the road east of Paris. My husband runs it. I am Madame Girard. You arrived last night unconscious in a carriage." Memory crashed down. The ballroom, Etienne's face, the carriage door closing. "I did not arrive," she whispered. "I was sent." Madame Girard pursed her lips. "The driver said he had been told to bring you as far as he could till you woke," she said. "Then he had to return to the city. Orders from the house," he said. He did not give a name, but the livery—" She shrugged. It spoke loudly enough. Isabel shut her eyes again. "And he left?" she asked. "Before dawn," Madame Girard said. "He paid for one night and went back. You still slept. We did not know if we should send for a doctor or a priest." "A priest," Isabel said faintly. "That would have suited some people." The innkeeper's wife hesitated. "Can you sit?" she asked. "I have broth. You are white as linen." With some help, Isabel pushed herself upright. The room spun for a moment, then steadied. She was lying on a narrow bed with clean sheets, a wool blanket pulled over her. Her dress had been loosened. "My trunks?" she asked. "In the corner," Madame Girard said, pointing. "The driver had them set there. At least he was honest enough to leave your belongings." Small mercy, she thought. "Do you have family we should send for?" the woman asked more gently. "A husband?" Isabel's throat closed. She gripped the blanket. "No," she said. "No family nearby. No husband." Madame Girard studied her a moment, then nodded as if that confirmed a guess. "Then eat," she said. "We will speak after." She took the bowl with both hands, sipping slowly. Her stomach clenched, then accepted the warm broth with a faint, surprising hunger. "How long have I been asleep?" she asked. "Since last night," Madame Girard said. "It is nearly noon. My husband wanted to know how you would pay, but I told him not to fuss. A lady dressed as you are always has a way." Isabel set the bowl on her lap. "I have some jewelry," she said, "and a little money. Enough for what I owe you and a bit more. I cannot stay, but I would be grateful for a day or two until I am stronger." Madame Girard nodded. "We do not throw people back on the road if we can help it," she said. "What shall we call you, madame? I cannot keep saying 'the lady' to everyone." Isabel hesitated. The next words felt like a small death. "My name is Isabel." "Laurent," she said quietly. The woman raised her brows. "Madame Laurent," she repeated. "And where are you bound, Madame Laurent?" "Somewhere that is not Paris," Isabel said. "I have no wish to be recognized. I only need a place to begin again." Madame Girard gave a short, practical nod, as if that was explanation enough. "There is a coach that passes tomorrow morning," she said. "It does not go far, only to Châlons and a few villages beyond. The fare is modest. You will be jostled, but you will be away from the city." "That will do," Isabel said. "I will take it." The innkeeper's wife sighed. "As you wish," she said. "Rest today. When my husband grumbles, I will send him to look at the loose boards in the stable. That keeps him busy and out of my kitchen." A faint smile touched Isabel's lips. "Thank you," she said. When she was alone, she swung her legs over the bed and stood slowly. Her body felt heavy, unbalanced, but there was work to do. She opened her small traveling case and counted the coins. Not many. She looked at a pair of pearl earrings, then at the gold bracelet Etienne had given her 2 years earlier. "You will look beautiful in this," he had said then, fastening it around her wrist. She held it in her palm now. The metal was cold. "You have served your purpose," she murmured. By evening, the bracelet belonged to Madame Girard, and Isabel's purse was a little heavier. She slept that night in the inn's small room, listening to the murmur of voices below, the clatter of dishes, the occasional laughter. Each sound reminded her of the house she had left, and yet this noise felt more honest somehow. At dawn, she climbed into the crowded coach. The interior smelled of wool, garlic, and damp straw. A farmer with a basket of chickens nodded to her. An elderly woman crossed herself as the horses snorted and stamped. "You travel far, madame?" the farmer asked. "As far as the coach will take me," she answered. He chuckled. "Then perhaps Providence will decide for you," he said. "We go where the wheels go." The journey was rough. The coach rocked and jolted over ruts. Isabel gripped the edge of the seat, swallowing against waves of nausea that rose and fell with the motion. "First time on the country roads?" the elderly woman beside her asked. "First time like this," Isabel admitted. "You will get used to it or you will curse it," the woman said cheerfully. "Sometimes both." By midday, the coach stopped in a small town. Some passengers descended, others climbed aboard. The driver shouted out names of villages ahead. "Saint-Martin, Montreval, La Rivière." "Saint-Martin?" the elderly woman beside her repeated. "That is a good village. Quiet, honest people. They mind their own business mostly." Isabel lifted her head. "Saint-Martin," she said. "Is it far?" 2 hours by this bone rattler," the woman said. "Why?" "Because it sounds one far enough," Isabel said. When the coach stopped again, the driver called out, "Saint-Martin-sur-Aube." The elderly woman nudged her. "Here you are, madame. Time to meet your fate." Isabel climbed down onto the packed earth. The village was small, a scatter of houses around a church and a square with a single gnarled tree. A well stood in the center. Chickens pecked near a doorway. A dog barked once, then lost interest. The coach rattled away, leaving her standing with her trunk and her hatbox. For a moment she simply stood there, hands clenched around the handle of her valise. "Well, girl," she murmured to herself. "You wanted somewhere not Paris, you have it." She walked toward the building with a sign creaking overhead, an inn of sorts with a faded painting of a fox and a goose. Inside, a large man with a thinning beard wiped his hands on a cloth and looked up. "Yes," he said. "I am looking for a room," she said. "I will pay." He eyed her cloak, her gloves, the careful way she spoke. "Traveling alone?" he asked. "Yes." "Widowed?" His tone held a hint of suspicion. She lifted her chin. "Yes," she said. "My husband is dead." It was, in a way, true. The man she had married no longer existed. The innkeeper grunted. "I have a room," he said. "Small, not for a long stay." "I need only a little time," she replied. "A few days to consider my options." He shrugged. 3 francs a night. Pay in advance. She opened her purse, counted the coins, and placed them on the counter. He scooped them up, bit one, and nodded. "Good," he said. "My wife will show you." A thin woman appeared from a back door, wiping her hands on her apron. She gave Isabel a quick look, then gestured toward a narrow staircase. "This way, madame," she said. The room was small, with a narrow bed and a single window that looked onto the square. Isabel set her things down and sat on the edge of the bed. By evening, half the village knew a widow with fine manners, and a single trunk had taken a room at the inn. At supper, people peered at her over bowls of stew. "From Paris, I hear," someone murmured. "Look at her hands. Never done a real day's work," another whispered. "Where is her family? Why is she alone?" The questions slid across the room like invisible darts. Afterward, as she climbed the stairs, a voice called from behind her, "Madame?" She turned. A woman of about 50 stood near the doorway, shawl wrapped around her shoulders. Her hair was streaked with grey, her eyes bright and sharp. "I am Thérèse Lefebvre," the woman said. "I live at the edge of the village. I saw you arrive." Isabel inclined her head. "I am Isabelle Laurent," she answered. "It is a pleasure." "Does the inn suit you?" Madame Lefebvre asked. "It is adequate," Isabel said cautiously. The older woman gave a short laugh. "A polite way of saying it is noisy and smells of onions," she said. "Forgive me, I am direct. I have lived too long to waste words." Isabel found herself almost smiling. "I have no wish to be a burden," she said. "I will not stay long." "That is a pity," Madame Lefebvre said. "We could use someone like you." Isabel blinked. "Someone like me?" "A pair of hands that can hold a needle properly, and a mind that knows its letters," the woman said. "I am a widow. I take in sewing, mending, that sort of thing. I also help the priest teach the youngest children their catechism and the alphabet. My eyes are not what they once were. A helper would be welcome." "I am not a governess," Isabel said quickly. "I have no—" "You speak like a lady," Madame Lefebvre said. "That is enough. The children will think you are a queen. They will behave from sheer awe. Isabel hesitated. I do not know how long I might stay, she said. I have no clear plan. None of us do, the older woman said. We simply pretend. Here is my proposal. You come to my house. I give you a room, modest but clean. You help me with sewing and with the children a few hours a day. In exchange, you pay a small amount when you can. It will be cheaper than the inn, and no one will peer at you while you eat. The offer hung between them. Isabel's first impulse was distrust. She had left a world where every offer had strings, where every kindness concealed an expectation. But this woman's eyes were clear, her manner practical. Why would you do this? Isabel asked. Madame Lefebvre shrugged. I was once a stranger here too, she said. Someone helped me. Now I help someone else. It is not complicated. Isabel looked down at her gloved hands. She thought of her dwindling coins, of the curious eyes in the inn, of the empty road outside. Very well, she said quietly. I accept. Good, Madame Lefebvre said briskly. Tomorrow morning, then. I will come with a cart for your things. Go to sleep, Madame Laurent. You look as if the world has been tapping on your skull all week. It has been longer than a week, Isabel murmured. The next day, she moved into Madame Lefebvre's small cottage at the edge of the village. It had 2 rooms, a low garden, and a view of fields that shifted with the weather. Her room was plain with a narrow bed and a chest for her few belongings. It is perfect, she said. It is what it is, Madame Lefebvre replied. Come, we have shirts to mend. Men are experts at tearing cloth. Days fell into a rhythm. In the mornings, she and Madame Lefebvre sat by the window, sewing by the light. They mended trousers, stitched torn sleeves, embroidered small patterns on dowry linens. You have neat hands, Madame Lefebvre remarked. Where did you learn? In my parents' house, Isabel said carefully. My mother believed an idle hand is a foolish one. And your father? He believed a daughter's hand should know how to sign her own name, she said. He insisted I read the newspapers aloud to him. Madame Lefebvre nodded. Wise man, she said. No wonder you speak as you do. In the afternoons they walked to the church, where a handful of children fidgeted on benches. Isabel taught them letters, drawing shapes on slates, correcting them gently when they reversed them. What is this one, Pierre? She asked. A, the boy said proudly. And this? He frowned. B. Good. And when we put them together? He stared, then grinned. Bah! He cried. The other children giggled. Very good, she said, feeling a strange warmth in her chest. You will be great readers in no time. News of the mysterious Madame Laurent spread. Some villagers remained wary, others warmed quickly. At the bakery, the baker's wife peered at her. Your husband, Madame Laurent, she asked. What was his trade? Trade? Isabel repeated. Yes. Was he a soldier? A lawyer? A merchant? She thought of Etienne in his uniform, of his estate papers, of his name whispered in salons. He was a man of property, she said slowly. We lived in the city. He died suddenly. The baker's wife clicked her tongue. God rest him, she said. City men think they are stone. Then they fall over like rotten apples. You are young, you may marry again. I think not, Isabel said quietly. The woman shrugged. Say that now. Wait until harvest, when the widowers begin to look around. At night, alone in her narrow bed, Isabel listened to the silence. It was different from Paris. No carriages, no distant music, only wind, the occasional owl, Madame Lefebvre's soft snores through the thin wall. It was lonely, but it was also strangely bearable. Here no one knew her old name. No one measured her worth by the curve of her belly. She could almost pretend she had chosen this life. Almost. Weeks passed. The sharpest pain of her exile dulled, replaced by a steady ache in her chest. Then her body began to change. At first it was small things. She woke tired as if her bones were heavier. The smell of frying onions, which she had tolerated before, now sent a wave of nausea through her. Are you unwell? Madame Lefebvre asked one morning, watching as she turned away from the stove, hand over her mouth. It is nothing, Isabel said. Perhaps a little fever. It will pass. But it did not. For 3 mornings in a row, she barely managed a few bites of bread. By evening, her appetite returned, ravenous. Her gowns pulled strangely at the waist. She thought she was imagining it. One afternoon at the church, she felt a sudden rush of dizziness. The letters on the slate blurred. "Madam?" little Pierre asked. "Are you falling?" She gripped the back of the bench. "No, my dear," she said. "I am only sitting." After the lesson, Madame Lefebvre took her arm as they walked home. "You are pale again," the older woman said. "You tire too easily. Your hands shake when you sew." "I am only adjusting," Isabelle insisted. "It is a new life." Madame Lefebvre gave her a sideways look. "It has been nearly 3 months since you came," she said. "That is long enough to adjust. Tell me something. When was the last time you were truly ill?" "I do not remember," Isabelle said. "And when was your last monthly course?" Isabelle opened her mouth, then closed it. She thought back. The ball. The room. The days before. "It should have come," she said slowly. "I assumed, with all the distress, I did not pay attention." Madame Lefebvre stopped walking. "How long?" she asked. "I do not know," Isabelle said. "Perhaps 6 weeks? 8? I am not sure." The older woman's eyes sharpened. "We are going to see someone," she said. "Who?" "Madame Bouchard," she replied. "The midwife. Do not argue. I have seen enough women to recognize what I see." "Midwife," Isabelle repeated. "I am not—" She could not bring herself to finish the sentence. "You are something," Madame Lefebvre said. "And we will find out what." The midwife's house was near the far end of the village. It was small, neat, with bundles of dried herbs hanging by the door. Inside, the air smelled of thyme and soap. Madame Bouchard was a compact woman with quick eyes and strong hands. "Thérèse," she greeted, "what trouble have you brought me this time? A stubborn baby or a stubborn mother?" "A stubborn widow," Madame Lefebvre said. "Madame Bouchard, this is Madame Laurent. She has been unwell. I suspect a reason." "She suspects nothing." The midwife smiled faintly. "Sit down, Madame Laurent," she said. "Tell me what you feel." Isabelle sat on a straight-backed chair, her hands twisted in her lap. "It is nothing unusual," she began. "I tire easily. Sometimes I feel dizzy. In the mornings I have little appetite, but later I am hungry. My gowns are a little snug." "And your monthly courses?" the midwife asked calmly. She looked down. "They have not come for some time," she admitted. "How long?" 6 weeks, maybe more." "More," Madame Lefebvre murmured. The midwife stepped closer. "May I touch your hands?" she asked. Isabelle nodded. The woman took her wrists, feeling her pulse, watching her face. "You are not burning," she said, "only a little cool, and your pulse is lively." She knelt then, pressing her hand lightly against Isabelle's abdomen through the fabric. "Lie back on the bed," she said, gesturing to the narrow cot against the wall. "I can tell more that way." Isabelle obeyed, heart hammering. The midwife's hands moved with practiced confidence, pressing here, there, waiting, listening. "Breathe," Madame Bouchard said softly. "In and out, that is it." For a long time no one spoke. Isabelle stared at the ceiling, counting the lines in the wood. "Well?" she asked finally, her voice thin. "Is it some illness? Something dangerous?" The midwife did not answer at once. She moved her hand lower, then higher again, then shifted her head and pressed her ear gently against Isabelle's belly. "What are you doing?" Isabelle whispered. "Listening," the woman said. "For what?" "Life," the midwife said simply. The word trembled in the air. Isabelle swallowed. "That is cruel," she said. "Do not give me false hope. I have heard such words before. They meant nothing." The midwife lifted her head and looked at her. "I do not deal in false hope," she said, "only in what I see and what I feel is that you are not ill, Madame Laurent. You are with child." Isabelle's breath caught. "No," she said. "You must be mistaken." "I am not mistaken," Madame Bouchard replied. "Your womb is rising, your body is changing, the signs are clear." Tears sprang to Isabelle's eyes. "But it cannot be," she whispered. "For years, nothing. They said I could not—" "Who said?" the midwife asked sharply. "A physician in Paris," Isabelle said. "He told my husband that I was unlikely to conceive, that the probability was negligible." "He must be very proud of his big words," Madame Bouchard snorted. "Well, he is wrong now." There's nothing negligible about this. Isabel covered her face with her hands. A sob escaped her, half laughter, half grief. "A child," she said. "I am carrying a child." "A child," the midwife agreed. "At least one." Isabel froze. "At least," she repeated. Madame Bouchard's expression shifted. She looked almost wary. "Your sighs surprises me," she said slowly. "For the time you say has passed. And when I listened just now—" She pressed her ear again to Isabel's abdomen, her brow furrowing. She moved her hand, waited, then moved again. "Well?" Isabel asked, panic rising. "What is it? Is something wrong?" The midwife lifted her head at last, her eyes very wide. "Wrong," she said softly. "No, not wrong. But I will tell you this, Madame Laurent. I do not hear one heartbeat in there. I hear more than one, two perhaps, or even three." For a moment Isabel thought she had heard wrongly. "2 or 3, she repeated. That is impossible." Madame Bouchard straightened slowly. "Nothing is impossible for nature when she is in the mood," she said. "I have attended many births. I know the difference between one heartbeat and several. There is more than one child in you, Madame Laurent. I would wager my best kettle on it." Isabel stared at the ceiling, then at the midwife, then at Madame Lefebvre, who stood near the door, gripping her shawl. "Say something," Isabel whispered. "Tell her she is wrong. Tell her—" "What would that change?" Madame Lefebvre asked gently. "Right or wrong, you are still carrying a child. Or children. Children." The word hung in the air, larger than the room. "I cannot—" Isabel shook her head. "I was told I could not have even one. How can there be more?" The midwife sat on the edge of the bed. "Nature does not consult physicians in Paris," she said calmly. "She has her own plans. You want the truth? I will give it to you. You are with child. Your body is strong enough to carry life. And if you are carrying 2 or 3, then you must be doubly careful. Eat well, rest, and do not lift heavy things. Let others fuss over you for once." Isabel gave a short, broken laugh. "Others have fussed over me before," she said. "It did not end well." "These are different others," Madame Lefebvre said. "We do not throw people out of doors for being human." The midwife nodded. "You will not be alone in this village," she said. "But we must be practical. Multiple babes can be a blessing and a burden. You will need help. Have you anyone you trust?" Isabel opened her mouth, closed it, then shook her head. "I had a maid once," she said. "A house full of servants. None of that is mine now. I have only what you see." "Then we will make do with that," Madame Bouchard said briskly. "Thérèse will nag you, I will prod you. Between the 2 of us, you may survive." Isabel swallowed. "And the father?" the midwife added carefully. "Does he know?" The room seemed to grow very still. "He does not," Isabel said. "And he need not. He made his position very clear." "Is he dead?" Madame Bouchard asked. "No," Isabel answered. "Only absent." The 2 older women exchanged a glance, but neither pressed further. "As you wish," the midwife said. "If you change your mind, we can send word. But know this, these children will come whether he knows or not. They will need a mother more than a title." Something in those words steadied Isabel. "They will have one," she said quietly. "Whatever comes, they will have me." On the walk home, she moved slowly, one hand unconsciously resting on her abdomen. The fields seemed different, the sky lower, the world both larger and narrower all at once. "You are very silent," Madame Lefebvre observed. "I do not know what to say," Isabel replied. "If I speak, I may wake and find it was all some cruel dream." "Does it feel like a dream?" the older woman asked. "It feels like falling," Isabel said. "And flying at the same time." Madame Lefebvre grunted. "That is motherhood," she said. "You might as well get used to it." Word of her condition spread through the village with the speed of curiosity. By the end of the week, everyone knew that Madame Laurent, the quiet widow with the fine hands, was expecting a child. The rumor of multiple babies trailed behind, half-whispered, as if saying it too loudly might scare them away. At the bakery, the baker's wife stared openly at her waist. "Ah, so that is why you looked green as old cheese," she said. "I thought you disliked my bread." "It was not your bread," Isabel said with a small smile. "It was my stomach." "And they say city ladies are delicate," the woman sniffed. "You will do well enough. If there are 2, you will have twice the trouble and twice the joy. If there are 3, the Lord himself will have to send an extra pair of hands. At the blacksmith's, a new face watched her with interest. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair and gentle eyes. He leaned on a hammer as she passed, wiping sweat from his brow. "That is her," he murmured to the blacksmith. "The one Thérèse took in?" "Yes," the smith grunted. "Mind your manners, Luke. She has had enough of men's foolishness from what I hear." Luke nodded, gaze thoughtful as Isabel walked by, unaware of his scrutiny. As her belly grew, work became harder. Bending over mending made her back ache. The children at the church began to ask questions. "Why is your dress so round, madame?" little Pierre asked bluntly. "Because I am hiding a pumpkin," she said dryly. He frowned. "In summer, a very stubborn pumpkin," she replied. "Do not worry about my dress, worry about your letters." They worried about both. Soon every child in Saint-Martin knew that Madame Laurent's pumpkin was actually a baby, or 2, or 3. The numbers shifted with each retelling. One afternoon, as she struggled to lift a basket of laundry, a shadow fell across the path. "Let me," a male voice said. She turned. It was the man from the smithy yard. "I can manage," she said. "I can see that," he replied. "You are doing a remarkable impression of someone about to fall over." Against her will, she laughed. "Who are you?" she asked. "Luc Morel," he said. "Carpenter. I make tables that wobble and chairs that do not. Thérèse sent me. She said if I let you carry another heavy basket, she would box my ears for negligence." "That sounds like her," Isabel said. He lifted the basket as if it weighed nothing. "Is it true?" he asked after a moment. "What they say about the babies?" "What do they say?" she parried. "That you have a whole nursery in there," he said, nodding toward her belly. "2 at least. Some say 3. Old Jacques says 5, but he has had poor hearing since the war." She shook her head, smiling. "People exaggerate," she said. "The midwife believes there may be more than one." "I do not know what to believe." Luke's expression softened. "Believe that you are strong," he said. "Stronger than you think. My sister had twins last year. She insisted the sky was falling. Now she says she would not trade them for all the quiet in the world." "I'm glad for her," Isabel said, "though I suspect she has not slept since." "She complains," he agreed, "but when one of them laughs, she forgets everything." He carried the basket into the cottage, setting it down carefully. "You will need a cradle," he observed, glancing around. "Or 2, or 3. "I have not thought that far," she admitted. "Then begin," he said. "I have some spare wood, nothing grand but solid. I can build something sturdy. Thérèse will tell you I am not entirely useless." She hesitated. "I cannot pay much," she said. "Then pay a little," he answered. "The rest I will take in stew and the satisfaction of not watching you panic when the babies arrive and have nowhere to sleep." She studied his face. There was no mockery there, only quiet goodwill. "Very well," she said. "1 cradle. If there are more babies than that, we will improvise." "We will make room," he said simply. Months passed. Her belly grew until she could no longer see her feet. Luc delivered 1 cradle, then began another without being asked. "You said 1, he explained when she protested. "But I heard 3 heartbeats today when I walked by. Or perhaps that was just my stomach. Better to be prepared. You try to make me laugh," she said. "Does it work?" he asked. "Sometimes," she admitted. In the evenings, she sat by the window, hand resting on her abdomen, feeling the strange fluttering within. "Be kind to me," she murmured. "All of you. I am new at this." Far away, in Paris, life went on. The Beaumont townhouse glittered as always. New invitations were written, new arrangements made. The servants spoke Isabel's name less and less, as if afraid of bad luck. One afternoon in a private salon, a minor baron bragged to his companions about a recent journey through the countryside. "Charming in a rustic way," he said, sipping his wine. "Fields, cows, suspicious villagers, and one very unexpected sight." "What was that?" another man asked lazily. "A lady in hiding," the baron said. "At least, that is what my cousin's friend swore. He lives in a village near Chalons. Told me there is a young widow there, elegant as any duchess, who teaches children and sews for her keep. And she is expecting. Not 1 child, mind you. They say she is as round as harvest moon, and the midwife mutters of multiple babes. Country gossip, someone scoffed. Perhaps, the Baron said. But my cousin's friend said something else. He said she speaks like high society, that she carries herself like one born to it. Dark hair, dark eyes, very reserved. Came from Paris, no one knows exactly when. Does that not sound like anyone to you? There was a pause. One of the men glanced toward the door of the next room, where Count Etienne Beaumont sat alone, reading a document. Do not be cruel, he muttered. Leave him be. The Baron raised a brow. I said nothing, he replied. And yet you thought of him. Interesting. Later, when most had left, the Baron found himself standing beside Etienne by the window. You have been quiet today, Beaumont, he said lightly. I have a story that might amuse you. I am not in the mood for amusement, Etienne replied, eyes on the street below. Not even gossip of Paris ladies hiding in villages with mysterious pregnancies? The Baron asked. One hears such things and wonders. Etienne stiffened almost imperceptibly. What do you mean? He asked, still looking outside. Oh, nothing, the Baron said. Only that I was told of a lady in a village called Saint-something or other near Chalons. My memory fails me. A lady who arrived from Paris nearly a year ago, alone, under a false name. Now she is about to give birth. The villagers say she is too elegant for a peasant. Some think she was cast off by a man of rank. Others say she fled him. Etienne turned then, his gaze sharp. Who told you this? The Baron looked surprised. A cousin's acquaintance, he said. Why? Does the tale disturb you? It is nonsense, Etienne said. Coincidences and idle talk. Of course, the Baron agreed, watching him. Still, one wonders. The description... Etienne's jaw tightened. That will do, he said. I have no interest in rustic fantasies. But the story followed him home. It sat with him at his desk, whispered in his ear as he tried to read reports. A lady from Paris, alone, pregnant, elegant. He slept badly. Images tormented him. Isabel's face pale and proud as she left his house. Isabel in a small room clutching her stomach. Isabel surrounded by strangers as she faced childbirth without help. The next day, he went to Dr. Vautrin. The physician looked startled when he entered. Count Beaumont, he said, rising quickly. I did not expect... You will answer my questions, Etienne said, closing the door. All of them, the doctor swallowed. Of course, he said. Anything within my knowledge. You told me my wife's chances of conception were negligible, Etienne said, that our marriage was unlikely to produce children. On what exactly did you base that conclusion? The physician adjusted his spectacles. As I explained, my lord, based on the time elapsed and the constitution of the lady... Her constitution, Etienne cut in. What does that mean precisely? Was there some defect, some clear condition, or was it simply convenient to blame her? Dr. Vautrin shifted. I performed examinations, he said. I found no obvious malformation. However, in such cases one must consider... Did you examine me? Etienne demanded. The doctor hesitated. No, he admitted. You declined. You assured me there was no need. And yet you were willing to pronounce judgment on my marriage, Etienne said coldly. To say that my wife was unlikely to bear children. You knew what those words would mean. I advised caution, the doctor said helplessly. I spoke of probabilities. Your mother... He stopped, realizing his mistake. My mother, Etienne repeated. She was very insistent, the physician murmured. She wished for certainty. She pressed me to speak plainly. She suggested that given your family's position, it would be preferable to consider the lady at fault, rather than raise doubts about the Count's own health. I should not have agreed. I was weak. Etienne stared at him. So you allowed my mother's wishes to color your diagnosis, he said. You let me cast my wife aside on a foundation of convenience. No, my lord, The doctor faltered, then sagged. Yes, I failed in my duty. If she is with child now... He stopped again, alarm widening his eyes. Why do you ask me these questions, my lord? He whispered. Has something happened? Etienne stepped back, suddenly sick. Write it down, he said. Write down that your former conclusion was unfounded. That you expressed an opinion under pressure that was not supported by clear evidence. "Sign it." "My lord, I cannot." "Sign it," Etienne snapped, "or I will see to it that every family you attend knows how easily you bend." With trembling hands, Dr. Vautrin obeyed. Later, Etienne confronted his mother. She stood in her salon, calm as ever. "You have been brooding, my son," she said. "It does not suit you. We must think of your future. There is a young lady I wish you to meet. Her dowry is—" "Mother," he interrupted, "what did you say to Dr. Vautrin when he examined Isabel?" She paused, then picked up a cup of tea as if the question were of no importance. "I merely impressed upon him the gravity of the situation," she said. "He understood that our family cannot afford uncertainty." "You told him to blame her," Etienne said, "whether it was fair or not." She sighed. "You are naive," she said. "Men like him exist to say what we need them to say. Your wife was not producing children. That is a fact. To waste time questioning whose fault it was would be foolish. We acted decisively. You are free now to make a more suitable match." "I was free to be a coward," he said quietly, "and I took that freedom." His mother's eyes flashed. "Do not speak to me of cowardice," she said. "You are a Beaumont. Act like one. The girl you divorced will find some modest existence. We owe her nothing more." He looked at her for a long moment, then set the doctor's written statement on the table. "Read it," he said. "Then tell me we owe her nothing." That night he did not sleep at all. By dawn his decision was made. He ordered a carriage, packed a small trunk, and gave instructions to his steward regarding the estate. To those who asked, he said only that he had business in the country. He did not mention rumors of a woman in a village or the way his heart pounded each time he imagined her face. The journey was long. He stopped in several towns, asking discreet questions. "A lady arrived from Paris last year," he said in one tavern. "A widow, perhaps, dark hair, educated. Have you heard of such a person?" In the third town, a miller's wife said, "My cousin's sister-in-law lives in Saint-Martin-sur-Aube. She told me of a woman like that, teaches children, lives with a widow named Lefebvre." "Saint-Martin-sur-Aube," Etienne repeated. "How far?" "Half a day by carriage," the woman said. "Follow the river road. You will not miss it." By the time he reached Saint-Martin, the sun was low. He left the carriage on the outskirts and walked, not wanting to announce himself with fine horses and crested panels. The village square was quiet. A few villagers watched him with cautious eyes. He approached a boy drawing lines in the dirt with a stick. "Do you know a woman called Thérèse Lefebvre?" Etienne asked. The boy nodded. "She lives there," he said, pointing toward the edge of the village, "with Madame Laurent and the 3 babies." Etienne's breath caught. "3?" he repeated. "Yes, monsieur," the boy said proudly. 3 little howlers, born not long ago. We can hear them all the way to the church." Etienne turned without another word and walked toward the small cottage the boy had indicated. His steps slowed as he approached. Light glowed behind the curtained window. He could hear something faint, a thin, wavering cry. Then another. He stopped by the low fence, his hand gripping the rough wood. Inside, through the gap in the curtain, he glimpsed a narrow bed, a rocking chair, the soft movement of someone rising, bent over. His heart hammered. This was it, then. Proof or punishment? He stood there, unable to force his feet forward. The door opened suddenly. Luc stepped out, cradling a small bundle against his chest. The baby whimpered, then settled as he adjusted his hold. "Do not fret, little one," Luc murmured. "Your mamma will have a moment to breathe if I walk you a bit." He turned his head and called back into the cottage. "Rest, Isabel," he said. "I will take him around the garden. You must sleep while you can." In the shadows by the fence, Etienne went rigid as he heard his wife's name on another man's lips. Etienne's fingers dug into the fence. "Rest, Isabel." Hearing her name in that man's voice sent a hot rush through him, ugly and sharp. He watched Luc pace a slow circle in the little yard, rocking the baby with practiced ease. The child's small fist waved in the air. Luc chuckled softly. "You see? The night is not so terrible," he murmured. "You just like to complain." The door had already closed behind him. Etienne could hear another thin cry from inside, then a woman's low murmur. Isabel. There was no mistaking the cadence, even muffled by walls. He stayed there until his anger cooled into something heavier. Shame and fear, and the awful knowledge that he had done this. He had left her alone long enough for another man to step into the space he had abandoned. But even as the thought formed, he heard Madame Lefebvre's sharp voice from inside. "Give him back after a few turns, Luc," she called. "His mother must see he still exists, and go home to your own bed. You look worse than the baby." Luc laughed quietly. "Yes, Thérèse," he answered. That simple exchange deflated the wildest of Etienne's suspicions. Luc was not a rival husband slipping out under cover of darkness. He was a neighbor, scolded like a wayward son. Etienne stepped back into the deeper shadow of a tree as Luc reached the gate. The carpenter passed so close, Etienne could have touched his sleeve. The baby's face was turned toward Luc's chest, eyes closed, mouth moving in a small, greedy dream. Luc disappeared around the corner. The yard fell still. Etienne stood there a long time, listening to the house breathe. He did not knock that night. He slept sitting up in the carriage just beyond the village, wrapped in his coat, eyes open more than closed. Each time he drifted, he saw Isabelle's face as he had last seen it, pale in the flicker of the hall lamps, disappearing into the dark. At first light, he washed his face at a roadside pump, straightened his clothes, and walked back to the cottage. This time he did not stop at the fence. He forced himself to the door and knocked. There was a brief pause inside, the sound of something being set down, a quiet exclamation, a low shushing. The latch turned. Isabelle opened the door. For a heartbeat, neither of them moved. She looked thinner than he remembered, and at the same time fuller, as if some invisible weight now anchored her. Loose dark hair was braided and wound carelessly at her neck. The plain dress she wore fell softly around her, marked by use and milk. There were shadows under her eyes, but her gaze was clear, sharp, and utterly awake. "Etienne," she said. His name in her mouth felt like a verdict. "Isabelle," he answered. Her hand tightened on the door. Behind her he heard a small cry rise and fall. Her head turned instinctively toward the sound, then back to him. "What are you doing here?" she asked. Her voice was quiet, but there was steel in it. "I came to see you," he said. "To see—" He faltered. The word children tangled with the word you. "To see what I have done," he finished. Her mouth curved, but it was not a smile. "What you have done," she repeated. "You are a little late for that." "I know," he said. "May I come in?" "No," she said at once. He blinked. "Isabelle." "We will not do this in front of them," she said. Outside, she stepped out and pulled the door almost closed behind her, leaving it open just a crack. A murmur from within suggested Madame Lefebvre was inside, watching, listening. Isabelle folded her arms. "Say what you came to say," she told him. "Then go." He had rehearsed speeches in the carriage. They fled now, leaving only the bare truth. "I heard a story," he said, "about a lady from Paris living under another name in a village, about a widow who was expecting children. I dismissed it at first. Then I could not. I went to Vautrin. I forced him to tell me everything. He admitted he had spoken under pressure, that he let my mother turn uncertainty into condemnation, that he made it easy for me to blame you." She stared at him. "And you came here for what?" she asked. "To tell me you were misled, that it was all a misunderstanding, that if you had only known I was not completely barren, you would have spared me the humiliation of being discarded like old linen." Her voice did not rise, but each word struck. "I came because I was wrong," he said. "Because I did not just allow your humiliation, I created it. Because I heard there might be a child—" "Children," she cut in. "There are 3. Even prepared as he was, the number hit him. 3, he repeated. She nodded once. 3, she said. 3 little lives that exist in spite of you, not because of you." His hand moved toward the door, then stopped. "I would like to see them," he said, "if you will allow it." Her eyes flashed. "You allowed nothing when you sent me away," she said. "You did not allow me time to gather myself. You did not allow me a farewell. You did not allow me a place in your house when you believed I could not give you what you wanted. And now you ask me to allow you the sight of what I carried alone?" He shut his eyes briefly. "I deserve your anger," he said, "all of it. But whether you let me see them or not, they are still my children. I cannot make that untrue." "You tried," she said. "You signed papers to pretend our marriage never really existed. You told a priest and a physician that our vows were an error. You wanted to erase me. If you erased me, you erased any child that might come of us. I annulled our marriage, he said hoarsely. I did not annul my responsibility. I did not know you were— That I was what? She demanded. Worth keeping? A cold wind moved between them. The door opened a fraction. Madame Lefebvre's voice cut through, firm and practical. Lower your voices, she said. You will wake all three at once, and then we will hear nothing but crying until nightfall. Isabelle turned her head slightly. We are finished, she said. No, Madame Lefebvre replied. You are far from finished, but you can talk like human beings instead of crows, and not on the doorstep. If the Count wants to come in, he will come in as a man asking forgiveness, not as a lord inspecting his property. She pulled the door wider and looked at Etienne without flinching. You are the husband who disappeared, she said. You have a great deal to answer for. Come in or go away, but decide. Isabelle hesitated. If he comes in, she said quietly, he will see them. Yes, Madame Lefebvre said, and they will see him. Better they know early what sort of father they have, so they can decide later if they want to claim him. Etienne flinched. I will come in, he said. The cottage was small. He had to duck slightly under the low beam. The air smelled of milk and soap and something sweet baking. 3 wooden cradles stood near the bed, 2 empty, one holding a sleeping bundle. As if on cue, the second cradle stirred. A tiny fist emerged from the blanket. A thin wail rose. Isabelle moved faster than thought. She lifted the child with practiced hands, murmuring nonsense under her breath. Here now, she whispered. You are not starving. You were fed an hour ago. You just like to complain. The baby's cry quieted into a hiccuping sigh. Etienne watched, unable to look away. How old are they? He asked. 6 weeks, she said without looking at him. They came early, but they are strong. And they are— He swallowed. They are well? They are alive, she said. They eat. They sleep. They protest. That is as much as one can ask of them yet. The third cradle rustled. Madame Lefebvre shook her head. You have cursed yourself, she told Isabelle. Caillou said the word sleep aloud. That always wakes the last one. She moved to lift the third baby. This is the little girl, she said to Etienne, the only one with sense. She complains the least. These 2 fools, she nodded at the first cradles, are boys. They take after someone. He winced. They are mine, he said quietly. All 3. I did not deserve them. But they are mine. No, Isabelle said, holding the baby close. They are mine. Whether you claim them or not is your decision. But their existence is not yours to own. He looked at the 3 small faces in turn, the boy in Madame Lefebvre's arms, brow furrowed as if thinking deep thoughts, the girl blinking slowly, the sleeping child in the first cradle, mouth relaxed. Something broke open in his chest. For a moment he could not speak. Madame Lefebvre eyed him. Sit down before you fall, she said. You are whiter than the linen. There, on the stool. It is sturdy. Luke made it. He sat. His hand closed around his knee to stop it shaking. Luke, he said. The carpenter. Yes, she said. The man you hid from last night, no doubt. Did you think he was her lover? He did not answer. Isabelle's mouth twisted. Let him think what he likes, she said. He thought so little when it mattered. I thought I was doing my duty, Etienne said. I thought I was sacrificing sentiment for the good of the house. I thought— You thought of yourself, she cut in. Of your name, your pride, your mother's approval. You did not think of me when you sent me from my own home in front of half of Paris. He closed his eyes. I have no excuse, he said. Only explanations that sound small even to my own ears. Then do not offer them, she said. You are not here to justify yourself. You are here to look at what you threw away. I am here to ask if there is any path left, he said softly. Not to the life we had, but to something that does not leave you and these children carrying the consequences alone. She laughed once. It was not a pleasant sound. A path, she said. You think you can simply build another road where the first one collapsed? You forget the ground you carved it into. I forget nothing, he said. He reached into his coat and pulled out a folded paper. This is from Vautrin, he said. His confession. He admits he let my mother's will influence his words. That he had no clear proof that you could not conceive. That he spoke of negligible probability, to satisfy our need for an excuse. Isabel did not reach for the paper. "And this changes what?" she asked. "Will it erase the looks I endured? The way your mother measured my waist each season with her eyes? The whispers that I had failed? Will it erase the night you summoned a priest and a doctor to declare me unfit and sent me away like something diseased?" "No," he said. "Nothing can erase that. But I will not let the world continue to believe the lie. I have already instructed my lawyer to correct the record. Every document that hinted at your supposed barrenness will be amended or destroyed. The annulment will be re-examined. I will declare publicly that there was no defect in you, that if there was fault, it was mine." She stared at him, startled. "Yours?" she repeated. "I refused examination," he said. "I would rather have clung to my certainty than risk my own pride. For all I know, I am the one who should have been doubting his own body. And yet here are 3 children. Whatever the truth, it is clear that I condemned you without evidence. And now you wish to look noble by taking blame," she said. "No," he replied. "I wish to be accurate, and I wish to undo what harm I can before it grows worse." Madame Lefebvre snorted. "A man who admits he was wrong," she said. "I did not think I would live to see one." She shifted the baby in her arms. "What do you want from her?" she asked bluntly. "Say it plainly. Do you want her back as your wife? Do you want the children and not the mother? Do you want to throw money and think that is enough? Say what it is so we know what we are refusing." Etienne looked at Isabel. "I want—" He paused. "I do not know if I have the right to want anything, least of all you. I came prepared to beg, and now that I am here I see how little I deserve the chance." "That is not an answer," Madame Lefebvre said. "I want to be their father," he said, "to provide for them, to give them my name openly, not as a rumor, to stand between them and any harm that might come of my actions. And if Isabel ever finds it in her heart to consider more, I would ask for that. But I will not demand it. I have demanded enough in my life." Silence fell. A log shifted in the small stove. One of the infants made a soft snuffling sound. Isabel looked down at the baby in her arms. The child's hand had escaped the blanket and rested against her collarbone, trusting and warm. "You speak of being their father," she said. "Where were you when I fainted in the carriage? When I woke in a stranger's bed with no idea where I was? When I had to choose a false name because my true one could only harm me?" "In Paris," he said quietly, "pretending that signing papers could make me blameless. And when I was sick every morning and too exhausted to sew, when I wondered if I would die in childbirth with no one to hold my hand. I was at dinners," he said, "listening to men complain of boredom. I was in salons letting my mother introduce me to girls whose eyes looked at me like I was a prize horse. I was everywhere I should not have been, and nowhere I should." She blinked rapidly. "And the night they were born?" she asked. "On that night," he said, "I do not know where I was, perhaps asleep, perhaps at cards. Wherever it was the wrong place." Her knuckles whitened around the blanket. "And now?" she asked. "Now that the hard part has been done without you, you appear. You speak of names and rights. Why should I trust you not to vanish again when something becomes inconvenient?" "You should not," he said. "Not yet. Perhaps not ever. Trust is not a favor I can request. It is something I must earn if you let me try." "How?" she demanded. "How do you propose to earn anything from me?" "By being here," he said simply. "By waking when they wake. By lifting what you should not lift. By doing whatever small things there are to be done, without asking you to thank me for doing what I should have done from the beginning." Madame Lefebvre looked at him a long time. "You propose to stay in the village?" she asked. "To live among farmers and carpenters, with your fine boots in our mud?" "Yes," he said. "And your mother?" she asked. "Has already sent messages asking where I have gone," he said. "She will learn soon enough. I have written to her. I told her I found my wife and my children, that I will not discard them, that she may accept that or live without me." Isabel's head came up. "You wrote that?" she asked. "I did," he said. "I do not know if she will accept it. For the first time in my life, it does not matter as much as it once did." Madame Lefebvre gave a low whistle. "You may yet be a man," she said. "We shall see." She looked at Isabel. "He is a fool," she said, "but even fools can sometimes learn. The question is not whether he deserves another chance. The question is what is best for you and the children. You are the one who stayed when he went. You are the one who will pay for whatever decision you make. Isabel's throat worked. I do not know, she said. Part of me wants to send him away, to say he is nothing to us, to let him feel what it is to be left outside. That would be just, Madame Lefebvre said. But justice and wisdom are not always the same thing. Another part of her, the part holding the baby, the part that woke in the night listening for each small breath, felt something else, a practical fear. Whatever I think of you, she said to Etienne, these children will one day ask who their father is. I can say he is dead, or I can say he lives but did not care, or, she faltered, or you can say he was a coward who tried to make amends, he supplied. That he stayed when leaving would have been easier. That he changed, slowly, painfully, because he could not bear the weight of what he had done. Her eyes met his. And if I allow you to stay? She asked. What then? You will not take them from me. You will not put us in some house in Paris like jewels in a box and visit when it suits you. No, he said. You will decide where we live. Here, if you wish. Or elsewhere, if the village becomes too small. I will make sure you never have to sew another shirt in your life unless you choose to, but I will not move you like furniture. She studied him a long time, searching for the old arrogance. It was there, in the set of his shoulders, the way he held himself. But something else lay over it now. Uncertainty. Humility. Very well, she said at last. You may stay. Not as my husband, as the father of these children. You will sleep where the innkeeper tells you. You will not cross this door uninvited. You will help when help is needed. You will sign whatever papers are necessary to secure their future and restore my name. You will accept that I owe you nothing beyond what I choose to give. He nodded, relief and pain mixing in his eyes. I accept, he said. More than accept. It is more than I dared hope. Madame Lefebvre gave a satisfied grunt. Good, she said. Then we have an arrangement. Now, Count Beaumont, prove you are useful. Take that basket of linen out to the line to dry. Your boots will meet our mud sooner than you thought. He rose, almost dazed, and obeyed. When he stepped outside, the light hit him like a shock. He stood for a moment in the yard, holding the basket, listening to the muffled sounds behind him. Isabel's low murmur, the soft cry of a baby, Madame Lefebvre's chuckle. He walked to the line, hung the damp cloth piece by piece, fingers clumsy, heart strangely light and heavy at once. Inside, Isabel sat on the edge of the bed, watching her daughter's eyelids flutter. Her anger had not vanished. It sat in her chest, solid and hot. But alongside it, something cooler had appeared. A cautious, fragile sense of possibility she did not yet trust. She touched the baby's cheek. We will see, she whispered. We will see what kind of man your father can become. Outside the open window, she heard Etienne's voice as he fumbled with a clothespin and swore under his breath, not in rage, but in frustration at his own useless fingers. It was the first time his helplessness had ever made her want to smile. The snow that winter never quite settled in Saint-Martin. It dusted the roofs, melted by noon, and left mud in its place. Etienne's boots learned that mud well. He rose early, not because some servant knocked at his door, but because one of the triplets always decided dawn was a good hour to announce his existence. Sometimes it was the louder boy, sometimes the quieter one who could become a storm in an instant, sometimes the little girl with her soft, determined cry. He came to the cottage with the first light, never entering without a knock. One morning, Madame Lefebvre opened the door and handed him a baby before he could speak. You are late, she said. He has been protesting since the rooster. Go walk him before my ears fall off. Etienne took his son clumsily. I am 5 minutes late, he protested. In baby time, that is 5 hours, she shot back. Do not argue. Rock. He obeyed. Isabel watched from her place by the stove, arms folded, hair escaping its braid. She pretended to focus on the pot, but her eyes followed his movements. He had learned. The first week he had held the babies like fragile porcelain, arms stiff. Now he moved more surely, fitting them against his shoulder, talking to them in a low voice. You are not frightening, you know, he told the squalling boy. You are the smallest opponent I have ever faced, and yet you defeat me daily. Do not tell him that, Isabel said. He will use it against you. Etienne glanced at her and gave a brief smile. "He already does," he said. "Look at him. He stopped crying just to enjoy his victory." It was true. The baby had gone quiet, eyes wide and satisfied. Days fell into a new pattern. Etienne split his time between the cottage, small tasks for villagers who still stared at him, but now sometimes nodded, and letters that travelled back and forth to Paris. One evening, as the babies slept and Madame Lefebvre snored softly in her chair, he spread a stack of folded papers on the small table. "What is that?" Isabelle asked, rocking gently with her daughter in her arms. "Proof," he said. "In ink this time, not just words." He handed her the top sheet. She read slowly, lips moving. "This declares that the children known as Jean-Paul and Claire Laurent are in fact the legitimate offspring of Count Etienne Beaumont and his lawful wife, born Isabelle Moreau," she murmured. "Their right to inherit is recognized under all laws and customs of the Beaumont estate." Her breath hitched. "Lawful wife," she repeated. "There was an annulment." "There was an attempt," he said. "It was never fully completed. The church hesitated. Too much doubt. Vautrin's confession gave us cause to question the grounds. The process has been reversed. Our marriage stands in the records as valid from the beginning." She looked up sharply. "You undid the annulment," she said. "Without asking me?" "Yes," he said, "because it was a lie. Because it branded you unjustly. The law now says what has always been true. That you were my wife, in fact, not a mistake to be erased." "And me?" she asked. "What of my name?" He handed her another paper. "This is a public declaration," he said, "signed by me, witnessed by 2 lawyers, and already delivered to certain people of influence. It states that any claim of barrenness or defect in you was unfounded, that my previous statements were made in error and under family pressure. It restores your reputation, at least on the page. The rest, I must restore with my own mouth." She set the papers down carefully. "And your mother?" she asked. "What does she say of all this?" "She is furious," he said simply. "She says I am throwing away everything she secured. She says no one will understand why I returned to you." "Will they?" Isabelle asked. "No," he said. "Most will not. They will whisper. They will say I lost my reason, but for once I can live with their whispers." He reached into his coat again and pulled out a smaller letter. "She wrote this to you," he said. "I do not know if you wish to read it. I told her I would deliver it. That is all." Isabelle hesitated, then took the letter. The handwriting was precise, familiar. She broke the seal. "Madame, my son insists I address you as my daughter. I find myself unable to do so. I am a woman who values order, and what has happened between you and my son offends my sense of it. However, I am also not blind. 3 children exist who bear my blood. For their sake, I will not oppose the steps my son has undertaken. I will not contest their legitimacy. I will not speak publicly against you. I do not beg your forgiveness. I do not expect it. I write only to say that I will not wage war on my own grandchildren. If you come to Paris, my door will not be open to you, but neither will it be barred to them." Madame de Beaumont Isabelle read it twice. Then she folded it and placed it back on the table. "She does not change easily," she said. "Nor do I," he answered. "But one of us had to begin." "And you chose you," she said. "I chose you," he corrected quietly. "And them." Spring slid over the village like a shy guest. The triplets grew. They no longer fit so easily against one shoulder. They rolled, they shrieked, they grabbed anything within reach. One morning Luc arrived to mend a broken shutter and found Etienne on his knees, trying to keep 3 crawling bodies from scattering in 3 directions. "Hold still," Etienne pleaded, as one baby headed straight for the stove. Luc leaned in the doorway, laughing. "You need fences," he said. "Small ones." "Build them," Etienne groaned. "I will pay you in whatever you ask. My dignity, perhaps. You still have some," Luc teased. Etienne shot him a look, then laughed too. It had taken time, but the 2 men had grown into a wary, then an easy respect. Luc had seen enough of his efforts to believe he was not a passing fancy. At the market, villagers now greeted Etienne with nods that were almost friendly. "Morning, Monsieur le Comte," the baker said. "Your son tried to steal a pastry yesterday." "Which one?" Etienne asked. "All of them," the man said. Isabelle watched all this with a strange mixture of pride and fear. She saw Etienne come in with dirt under his nails. She saw him fall asleep in a chair with a baby on his chest. She saw him rise in the night because he had heard a cough through the thin wall at the inn. One evening, when the babies were finally quiet and the cottage was lit by a single lamp, she found him outside, sitting on the low step, staring at the sky. "You should sleep," she said. "They will not grant you many hours." "I know," he said, "but sometimes when I close my eyes I see the ballroom." She sat on the other end of the step, leaving space between them. "Do you?" she asked. "I see you," he said, "standing there while I spoke. I hear my own voice and want to silence it. I wonder why you did not slap me." "Would it have changed anything?" she asked. "Perhaps not," he said, "but I would have deserved it." She studied his profile. It was the same face she had once loved, but there were new lines at the corners of his eyes, a softness in his mouth when he listened. "Why did you never ask me?" she said slowly. "How it was for me. After." He looked at her then. "Because I was afraid of the answer," he said. "Afraid that if I heard the details I would never stop seeing them. Tell me now if you wish, or keep it if that is kinder to you. I have no right to ask." "I want you to know," she said. "You should carry some of it." So she told him. Not in a flood, but in short, sharp pieces. She told him about waking in the inn, abandoned by the driver, about choosing a false name with shaking hands, about arriving in Saint Martin and feeling watching eyes on her back. She told him about the first time she realized her courses were late, the terror that it might be illness, the visit to the midwife, the word life hanging in the air like a miracle and a mockery. She told him about the night the triplets were born, the hours of pain, the fear that her body would fail her at the last moment, the moment of quiet between one cry and the next when she thought she had lost one. "I called for you," she said softly. "Not aloud. I did not want them to hear your name, but inside, like a child calling for someone who will not come." His hands clenched on his knees. "I was not there," he whispered. "I chose not to be there before I knew there was a there to be." "Yes," she said. "You chose. That is the part I cannot soften." A tear slipped down his cheek. He did not wipe it away. "I am sorry," he said. "It is not enough. It is all I have." She watched him for a long moment. "You have more than that," she said. "You have every day from now on." He turned his head, meeting her gaze. "Do I?" he asked. "Do I have them with you? Or alone, in some house where I visit, and they look at me as a stranger?" She did not answer. Instead, she rose. "We are tired," she said. "Talk of futures can wait for daylight." He stood too. "Isabelle," he said. She paused. "What?" "I love you," he said quietly. The words hung there, simple and bare. She closed her eyes briefly. "You loved me once," she said, "and still chose your pride. Love is not just feeling, Etienne, it is what you do with it." "I know," he said. "That is why I say it now, when the feeling is the smallest part of it." She did not look back as she went inside, but later in the dark, listening to the soft breaths of 3 babies, she heard those words again, formed not by his mouth, but by his actions over the past months. It was harder to dismiss those. Spring turned to early summer. Flowers appeared on windowsills. The priest announced that there would be a special Sunday for the baptism of the triplets. "The whole village will come," he said, beaming. "We have never baptized 3 from the same mother at once. The font will be almost as tired as she is." Isabelle felt panic and excitement twist together in her. "Everyone?" she asked. "Yes," the priest said, "including the father. It is only proper." She looked at Etienne. "Will you stand there?" she asked. "Before them all?" "Yes," he said. "It is past time I stood in front of a crowd for something other than my own importance." The day of the baptism dawned bright. The villagers crowded into the small church. Children wriggled on benches. Luc had swept the floor himself. Madame Lefebvre had arranged wildflowers near the altar. Isabelle stood near the front, holding Claire in her arms, the 2 boys in the arms of Madame Lefebvre and Luc. Her dress was simple, clean. Her hair was braided tight. The priest smiled at her. "You look like a saint from a window," he said. "A very tired saint." "And their father?" she asked. "Here," Etienne answered, stepping forward. He wore no decorations, no sash, no sign of rank except the way he carried himself. Yet his shoulders seemed humbler than they had ever been in any ball. He took his place beside her. The service began. The priest spoke words Isabel had heard before at other children's baptisms, never thinking she would hear them spoken over her own. He asked the names. "Jean," she said, nodding at the first boy. "Paul," said Madame Lefebvre, eyes shining. "Claire," she whispered, pressing her lips to her daughter's head. He asked if the parents renounced evil, if they would raise these children in faith, in honesty. "I will," she said. "I will," Etienne said, voice steady. Water touched tiny foreheads. Cries rose and fell. The congregation murmured responses. When it was done, when the priest had lifted his hands in blessing and the last amen faded, the church emptied slowly into the square. Children ran ahead, shouting. Old men shook their heads and smiled. Women clustered around Isabel, cooing over the babies. "They are beautiful," the baker's wife said. "All three. You have done well, Madame Laurent." "It is time you stopped calling her that," Madame Lefebvre said. "That is not her name." The baker's wife frowned. "What then?" she asked. Isabel opened her mouth, then hesitated. Etienne stepped forward, turning to face the gathered villagers. His heart beat hard, but his voice, when it came, was clear. "I ask a moment," he said. The square quieted. Curiosity pricked the air. "I came here months ago as a stranger," he said. "Some of you recognized my clothes, my way of speaking. Some of you guessed my title. You had every reason to mistrust me. I had every reason to be ashamed." A murmur ran through the crowd. He went on. "I was the husband who sent his wife away. I was the man who believed his pride more sacred than his vows. I let others tell me she was at fault, because it was easier than looking at myself. For that I have no defense." Isabel watched him, pulse racing. This was his choice. She had not asked for this speech. "But when I came here," he continued, "I found that the woman I had cast out had not crumbled. She had built a life without me. She had friends, a place, a purpose. She had carried not one child but 3, alone, without my name or my help. She did all the hard things I feared, and she did them without bitterness toward those who showed her kindness." He looked at Madame Lefebvre, at Luc, at the priest. "You took her in," he said, "when I did not. For that I owe you more than I can ever repay. You gave her what I should have given, a home, respect, safety." The villagers shifted, embarrassed, pleased. "And now," he went on, "I ask something more of you. I ask you to see her as I should have seen her from the beginning. Not only as the mother of my children, not as a discarded countess, but as a woman whose worth was never tied to my name." He turned then fully to Isabel. "When I summoned a crowd once before," he said quietly, "it was to humiliate you. I spoke words that cut you, to protect myself. I made you small, so that I could feel large." He swallowed. "I will not do that again. If I must speak before others now, it will be to lift you up, not to strike you down." Her throat tightened. The square seemed to have shrunk, every eye on them. "Isabel Moreau," he said, using her maiden name, "you have every reason to despise me. You have given me more grace than I deserve by allowing me to stay near our children. You owe me nothing. I know this. I came prepared to accept that nothing was all I would have." He took a breath. "But I must ask," he said, "not as a count asking a favor, but as a man who has learned something of humility. Will you consider, not for our past, but for what we might build now, marrying me again?" A ripple ran through the villagers. "Marry him," someone whispered. "Quiet," hissed another. Etienne kept his eyes on Isabel. "Not to return to the old life," he said. "Not to be placed on a pedestal and forgotten. To be my equal. To walk beside me, not behind. To tell me when I stray. To share the burdens I once tried to place entirely on you. To raise our children together openly, as husband and wife, not just in name, but in truth." His voice roughened. "I do not ask you to forget," he said, "only to consider forgiving. And if you cannot now, then someday. I will wait as long as it takes." The square held its breath. Isabel felt every gaze like a weight, and yet, in that moment, they seemed far away. There was only him, and the babies in her arms, and the woman she had become. She thought of the girl she had been in Paris, full of dreams and delicate hopes. That girl would have said yes without hesitation, before understanding what such a yes cost. The woman standing here had counted costs. She had known cold and hunger and fear. She had lived without him and proven she could. She stepped forward, standing so close she could see the tiny scar near his temple she had once traced with her fingers. "You want an answer here," she said quietly. In front of them. "I want an answer that you mean," he replied. "Here, or in the cottage, or under a tree, I do not care, but I will not hide." She lifted her chin. "Then hear me," she said. She turned slightly, her voice carrying. "I loved this man once," she said. "I believed our vows would protect me from the cruelty of the world. I was wrong. Our vows did not protect me. He did not protect me. When he chose his pride over me, something in me died." She saw him flinch, but he did not look away. "I built a life without him," she continued. "I learned who I was when no one called me Countess. I learned I could stand on my own feet." She looked at the babies, at the villagers, at Madame Lefebvre's bright eyes. "I do not need a husband to survive," she said. "I want that clear. I am not choosing from fear of being alone. I have not been alone here." Luc nodded slightly, lips pressed tight. She looked back at Etienne. "But I have watched you," she said, "day after day, changing linens, burning your fingers on hot pots, walking the floor with crying children who do not care that you once danced in palaces. I have watched you speak truth that hurts you more than it hurts those who hear it." Her voice softened. "I have seen you, not just in name, in action, and I have seen a man I once loved learn to be someone I could respect." Is shone. "Isabel?" he began. She raised her. "I am not the girl. I am older, angrier, and more stubborn." "I know," he said. "I like her better." "Good, because if I say yes, it will not be to who it will be to. I will speak when something is wrong. I will not bow to your mother. I will not disappear behind your title. If you break this trust again, there will be no third chance." "I understand," he said. "I accept." She drew a breath. "Then yes," she said. The square exploded. The children shrieked with delight, though they did not know why. Women laughed and wiped their eyes. Men thumped each other's shoulders. Etienne exhaled as if he had been drowning. "Yes," he repeated, almost disbelieving. "Yes," she said. "I will marry you again, but this time we do it here, in this village, with the people who stood by me, not in a ballroom where words taste like glass." He nodded, tears spilling over now. "Here," he said, "where I first learned what real courage looks like." The priest stepped forward, hands lifted. "If you two cannot wait a week, I suppose we can manage a small ceremony soon," he said dryly. "I warn you, I have no chandeliers to offer, only a leaky roof and honest witnesses." "It is enough," Isabel said. It was more than enough. They married that afternoon, not in silk and jewels, but in clean linen and borrowed flowers. The church bell rang, not for show, but for joy. Luc stood as a witness, solemn and smiling. Madame Lefebvre dabbed her eyes with her apron and muttered about dust. "You may kiss the bride," the priest said with a twinkle. Etienne hesitated, searching Isabel's face. "May I?" he asked softly. She nodded. He bent his head, and their lips met, not like strangers or actors, but like two people who had walked through fire and found each other on the other side. It was not a grand, sweeping kiss. It was simple and sure and full of everything they did not yet have words for. The babies gurgled in protest at being ignored. Years later, villagers would still talk about that day. They would say how the Count hung linen in their yards and never complained, how the Countess swept her own doorstep and laughed more easily than most with half her burdens, how their children, 3 at once, then others one by one, ran through the square like they owned it, which, in a way, they did. But for now, in the hushed moment after the ceremony, Isabel stood with her hand in Etienne's, feeling its warmth. He leaned closer. "One thing still troubles me," he murmured. "What is that?" she asked. "The first time I stood before a crowd and spoke about you," he said, "I broke your heart. Today I stood and tried to mend it. I do not know if the scales are balanced." She looked at him, really looked. And for the first time since leaving Paris, the memory of that ballroom no longer burned. It dimmed. "They may never balance," she said, "but love is not an account book, Etienne. It is a story. Ours was ugly in the middle. That does not mean it cannot end well." "And will it?" he asked. She glanced at the triplets, at the villagers who had become family, at the wide, waiting sky above the little church. "It will," she said, "because this time we will write it together." Thank you so much for listening to this story all the way to the end. We hope it moved you as much as it moved us while telling it. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave us a comment telling us where you're listening from and what you liked the most. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What score would you give it? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like as a show of support. That really motivates us to keep creating and sharing more stories full of emotion and life lessons. And before we go, we want to remind you that an exciting and heartwarming story recommendation will appear on the final screen. If you'd like to enjoy it, just click on the video. Thank you once again for being here, and we'll see you in the next story.